We're not even halfway in.
Nothing happened.
Thank
There
God.
was a certain sexual tension in the air.
What?
After all, he wasn't
Doctor?
getting any older. I thought maybe in a few years when we were closer in age, you know. But in the end, I left.
If you went-
like the others. To be honest, I think he was too much of a gentleman.
I think if she was with the
Also,
fifth
there was
Doctor,
never
it would
enough
make no
time.
sense.
I think Susan just felt hugely rejected.
Of course I felt rejected. Imagine your nearest relative throws you outside into a post-Holocaust wasteland and claims it's because your true path lies in the arms of some urban gorilla.
Whoa.
But you were in love with David Campbell.
I was 16. I was always in love with someone.
That's not
I'd
true.
been in love with a Menoptera the week before.
You never went to the Web Planet!
Furry butterfly, had you?
Or at least not in the Web Planet. You didn't go to the Web Planet in the Web Planet. I don't even think the Doctor's ever been there. So how could you have gone to the Web Planet when you weren't in that story? I mean, fair enough, maybe they met the Menoptera another day, but I don't think so. I don't think they met the Menoptera before Dalek Invasion of Earth. I think the first time the Doctor met the Menoptera was in the Web Planet, and Susan Foreman was not in that story. Nor was she in the Crusade, and she brings mention of that up later on. She and the Chase as well.
There I was in the year 2164,
That's
over
a good
200
choice,
years
isn't
from
it?
my school, in a city that was nothing but ruins. David said we could rebuild it together. Okay, I thought. When I looked at the size of the problem, rebuild London after the Daleks and their robo-men had smashed it up. I thought, no, thank you, and I rang home.
Yeah, you should do that.
Yes. Anyway, my godfather's brother, Terry, was very nice and said next time he was inspecting that part of the time waft, he'd pick me up.
Oh,
Which he
sure.
did.
Did he get you back in time for your O-levels?
Well, to be honest, I didn't really want to go back to 1964. You see, I'd seen a bit of the future by this time, and one thing I knew was that things were pretty quiet in London until 67, 68. So I asked him to drop me off sometime around then. But he said he could only obey real time, which is a bit patronising because any fool knows time is relative. But real time meant that I'd been away 8 months by now, so I had to go back to July 1964.
This is where all the problems
Anyway, on the
start.
plus side, at least I got back to
Susan.
somewhere that wasn't covered in rubble and bits of dead Dalek. But I missed my mocks and my O's.
Oh dear.
The headmaster called me in and said, that girl who disappeared at the end of last year, Susan Foreman, she's turned up. And then he said, I always remember this, he said, I should tell you, Ian, she's making some serious accusations about you.
Well, if I was followed by one of my teachers, I probably would too.
I was young, I was stupid, I've realised that now. I should have kept quiet about what had happened, but all the girls were asking me what it had been like. I felt rather inadequate when I said I hadn't been off with some boy on a motor scooter.
I think you would have been
They
more
even started
good
to
off.
tease me
Well,
that I hadn't had the nerve. So I told them I'd been to China and France and South America and Paris, and that Mr. Chesterton and Miss Wright had been with me. Well, he was a bit of a dish, you see. But then one girl, Veronica Cartwright it was, said, "But they've been here all the time, Susan Foreman. You're a liar, you are."
Wouldn't it have been easier to lie? To pretend you had been away to Brighton?
Well, yes, but I can't lie, you see. It's a very Earth thing, lying.
oh,
People
I get it.
don't lie on other planets.
Oh, no. In fact, it's one of the reasons why there's so little interplanetary tourism to Earth, because you have this reputation for dishonesty.
Not to mention
No,
violently
I can't
attacking
lie,
aliens,
although it always gets
even
me
the
into trouble.
even
It did
peaceful
then.
ones.
You see, what I didn't know was that Ian and Barbara were already back. When my grandfather chucked me out in 2164, they were still inside
What's a
the
grandfather can't write
TARDIS.
an actress?
But
She was an
months
alien.
later, you see, when he was on the planet Mechanus, my grandfather sent Ian and Barbara back to Earth, but at a point 1 second before they first entered the TARDIS. And of course the TARDIS was no longer there.
How she knew
So it
about
seems when
Mechanus, I don't know,
suffering
but still.
time-space amnesia, they appeared never to have left Coal Hill, although they'd actually been away a year. Whereas I had come back 4 months before them, but only turned up now 8 months after. Now this is the kind of irresponsible thing my grandfather does. So I had to explain about time travel if anyone was to believe me.
Also, Ian and Barbara came back 2 years later.
Teenage runaway schoolgirl.
Or at least a year and a
New
half.
Kathy come homes.
At that time, the Daily Sketch was doing a piece about runaway pregnant schoolgirls. And somehow they got under Susan.
No.
To be honest,
This
it was
happens.
a relief to find someone who seemed to believe me. He told me he wanted to tell the real story of my time away. I was staying in a YWCA by then.
How did you come
YMCA.
to meet such a boss?
Oh wait, did you say W?
One evening I was in an espresso bar and this man offered to buy me a coffee and I thought, okay. He seemed sympathetic and said he was just interested in telling the true story. When I started to explain that in 100,000 BC the tribe of Gun had lost the knack for making fire, well, I could see that I wasn't really telling him what he wanted to know. After a while, he got up to go. I was so desperate for someone to believe
Are you ready for the
that I did
biggest
something I shouldn't have.
biggest nail in the coffin?
I said, I've got artifacts in my room.
This isn't for continuity, this is for story.
Understood what I meant. What I got were bits and pieces that I'd smuggled through from different times we visited. A sou from 1794, an ancient Chinese tea bag, an early form of Aztec contraception, and some in-flight cutlery from the planet Mechanus.
You never went to Mechanus!
Former
I don't think they had
investigative
cutlery.
reporter, currently serving 6 months for impersonating a gynecologist.
Huh?
Now this is a long time.
Oh, this guy's in
ago,
prison
you
for
remember.
impersonating.
I thought when she invited me up to her room, we were in for a spot of the owl.
Soundsmyth.
I wasn't expecting a duffel bag of knickknacks from the British Museum. What do you say now? She said. Look, I said, you're a nice girl. I don't know where you got all this stuff from, but I should put it back if I were you, or just chuck it in the bin.
I was so annoyed I threw him out. Made
This-
a bit of a noise.
This story's gone
That
from
got me into hot
irritating
water
to
because we weren't supposed
dull.
to have visitors, so I was asked to leave the hostel.
I was in my own at my digs, and she turned up at the door. I said, I can't talk to you. And I don't want to talk to you after the things you've been saying.
He was my only chance to prove I wasn't insane.
Well, he and Barbara,
It
but
was
still.
Mr. Chesterton or Miss Wright.
Oh,
She'd
wait.
taken a field trip to Peru.
Oh,
I
yes, I
said,
forgot
you
about that.
must remember. Try and remember. You were knighted by Richard the Lionheart.
You didn't know
You were
that.
tried for murder in Millennius.
That's
you
true.
led the Thals attack on Skaro.
That's true.
I was standing out there in the rain and I was desperate. With just me saying it, all they had was a silly schoolgirl. But if he could just remember one little bit of it, they couldn't ignore 2 people.
I shouldn't
Well,
have
actually, they
told
could.
you so.
And then this
She
happened.
was talking nonsense. Out of bed she was. No, I just hoped they'd warn her off. I didn't think they'd take her in and search through her belongings.
Whoa.
Runaway schoolgirl attacks teacher.
Well,
Stolen
seems-
goods seized. I'm a time traveller, says teenage Susan. Oh, I remember those headlines. I don't blame Mr. Chesterton. I don't blame the police. They were only doing their job. And so was the reporter from the Daily Sketch, I suppose. What really hurt was the man from the British Museum who turned up and identified my souvenirs as museum property.
How could he know that they're actual museum property? Did he know that there were some artifacts missing? Did he think they used to have tags on them that may have been British Museum? Did he think, looking at them, he's like, this looks like museum property, they must be from the museum. Did he have a checkbook? Or logbook or something? How would he know? And if he was lying, then why would he lie? Does that mean he gets the artifacts to go in the museum? In which case, he's the one who should be in trouble. Jesus Christ, this story's gone way downhill than it already started at. The good news is there's only 8 minutes left. Let's get this over with, but really, this is the worst part of this story. The continuity errors, they're shit. But the story that follows is even worse.
Complete lie.
Exactly.
I got sent to an approved school in Barking. It was like prison.
So for you Americans there, it's more like
It was
it's like a
very
reform
bad
school.
time for me. When I got out, I drifted. I tried religion. I tried opening a concept shop of my own, but people only wanted the T-shirts, and we don't really make much on those. So I decided the time travel was just past history, and I became an ordinary girl.
To be honest, I think you would
I
be
got a
better
job
stuck
as
in
a
the
typist
22nd
in the civil
century.
service, and in 1972 I was involved with Britain's entry into the common market, and I've stayed in the EC ever since.
No,
The
she's
odd thing is,
now
you
she's
see,
with
when I got
numbers.
to Brussels, I noticed that a lot of the other officials weren't from this planet at all.
Oh,
In fact, there are several former time travellers who are running things here at the moment.
huh.
And you married an EC commissioner?
Yes. Yes, marriage was a mistake, really.
Ooh.
Because I couldn't lie sufficiently. I just couldn't. You see, I could cheat, but I couldn't lie. After the divorce, I threw myself into this career and did rather well.
This
I was
isn't that
determined I
interesting.
would become a commissioner too.
I mean, I wouldn't mind
I
listening to
really
Susan doing
appreciate
normal
that,
stuff, but
Because really, I think we all imagined she'd
it's not that
go
interesting.
the way so many girls do after approved school. Now, what really galled me, though, was the fact that 5 years ago, up she pops as an EC Commissioner for Education.
I suppose education had always been a particular hobby horse of mine because I'd missed out on my O-levels. So when the job in education came up, I jumped at it.
And it's bad enough having to deal with the national curriculum and NHS, but if we're introducing all these new EC regulations as well, there is simply going to be no time for teaching. I mean, happy
They started getting GCSEs around the late
levels,
80s.
special needs and computer literacy up to the year 2164. I mean, that's over 150 years' time.
Better safe than sorry.
The woman clearly has no idea the damage her EC nonsense is doing to British education.
To be honest, it's not
Why
any
are you so
different to what it
keen
is
on
now.
standardising education until the year 2164?
I've been there.
Though to be fair,
I know
I
what
think
a
it actually
mess
might be a bit
the
of
schools were in when
improvement.
the Daleks attacked. The system collapsed completely.
Obviously.
So you're trying to prepare the Earth against another Dalek attack, is that it?
Well, no, not another one. The
the
same
same.
one. It hasn't happened yet, but there's only 170 years to go.
Ish.
We all admire Susan tremendously.
This guy.
EC Commissioner Temis's Skyadron.
Ugh.
She has great energy, but she can enjoy a laugh. That's why she fits in so well in Brussels. It's important that you don't take this job too seriously, otherwise I think you could get very depressed.
It's accountants and politics.
Next year, when Brussels announces plans to extend membership to other parts of the galaxy, I can see there will be an enormous public outrage and the usual expressions of disbelief.
What? So that aliens are getting their jobs.
Surprise.
This is something that's happening with Supergirl.
And it's true you came here from the planet Skaro,
Yes?
6 billion light years away.
5.6.
Are there many people from outer space running the EC?
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't this generally known?
Yes, why not?
I don't think anyone's asked us before.
Do you ever see your grandfather?
What about the public
Oh,
outrage
yes,
you
I
mentioned?
see him from time to time, but I never know what he's going to look like next. Probably be about 16 by now. In
She'll
fact,
be
for a
born
while,
again
I did
next.
suspect that he was one of my daughter's boyfriends. The Time Lords caught up with him eventually.
Yeah,
He was
walking.
caught speeding through the Dark Ages because he didn't think anyone would look for him there.
No!
He claims he always files his flight plans now. Though you never know with him.
When you look back to 1963-64, to the time when you were in the news, do you have any regrets?
Oh no, not at all. What's the point?
I would.
Mind you, the timing of our
Maybe
events
it's
is
going
a
to
bit
bring this on.
unfortunate. I mean, if we hadn't set off in November 63, things would have been much easier. For one thing, I could have taken my mock O-levels. And I wouldn't have that terrible embarrassment every time somebody says, "Do you remember what you were doing when you heard the news about President Kennedy?" I still get the strangest looks when I say I was hurtling back 100,000 years to a point where mankind had lost the ability to make fire.
Or couldn't.
That's why I like working here, to be honest. Nobody bats an eyelid.
To be honest, that's
How?
sensible.
In Whatever Happened to Susan,
Oh, it's finished.
Susan was played by Jane Asher
27
and Ian
minutes.
by James Grant. Other parts were played by June Barry, Eva Haddon, Andrew Sachs, Peter Woodthorpe and Becky Harrison. Claire Rayner appeared as herself. Whatever Happened to Susan was written by Adrian Morby and produced in Bristol by Brian King.
The only good thing about this is it was made in Bristol.
Whatever Happened to the Notorious Victorian Murderer, Little Lord Fauntleroy.
Most likely, he fell into a wormhole and then had tea with somebody and then messed up his story's continuity. And it's not quite finishing yet. 27, I think it's 28 minutes. Or just under. I'm just going to take it out. And then we're going to wrap up this. It's a very... I guess they wanted... Oh, here we go. And we're back to the special features menu. So after all of that, here is my conclusion. Whatever Happened to Susan is worse than the worst type of fan fiction you could ever find. The most fan-wanky fan fiction. Because it fucks up continuity, it misses the point of the characters, it misses the understanding of the story. It gets some bits right, but that's mostly references. Character-wise, it's not very good. They screw up continuity, they screw up times and events. They completely ignore the Five Doctors, which is the biggest crime of the continuity errors, because Five Doctors, Susan appears there, she's all grown up, she's fine. I can understand other bits of expanded media being ignored, especially the stuff afterwards not being included because that came afterwards, but anything before would have made I can understand. But the Five Doctors, it's one of the best stories of all time, and you've completely ignored or forgot about it. Jesus Christ! And that's just half of the problems we've got in this story, and everything else is shit. Everything they add that to make the story, the second half of the story, additional bits about the character that is not true, or at least I would not say would fit with the story or the characters, is absolute shit. This was painful. This was painful to listen to every single time. And it's only been 3 times, 3 or 4, but every time it's been so painful. So painful. Even the first time when I was watching it, I'm sure even if I didn't exclaim the corrections, then I'm probably thinking them. This gives me a chance to exclaim it. Everything, or almost everything, in this fucking radio play is shit! There's only a few good things. First of all, Jane Asher does a good performance as Susan, and I suppose the guy's Ian does pretty well, where I can barely hear him over the school children half the time. The interviewer is pretty good. If the Agony Aunt is an actual Agony Aunt, pros for her for getting her involved as a fictional version of herself. But if it's just an actress playing an Agony Aunt, and just saying the Agony Aunt voiced herself, then it probably was an actual Agony Aunt, so pro for her if that's true. But if it was an actress playing an Agony Aunt and they claimed that the Agony Aunt herself voiced herself, then bullshit. And also, not very helpful, you just lost the point. I'm going to give it the benefits of the doubt and say it was probably an actual Agony Aunt voicing herself, otherwise they probably would have said someone as the Agony Aunt. But okay, let's say that was an actual Agony Aunt voicing herself, so pros for her for doing it, I suppose. Even if what she was given wasn't that good and the thing she was given was even worse. But out of the other voice actors, apart from maybe the BBC staff, they weren't that good. Barbara I suppose she sounded old, but I think she was made to be too old. I think if it was done in 2014, it would make sense. And again, Barbara's probably dead by then. Okay, 2004 then. If it was done in 2004 or 2014, then it might make sense. But I think she sounded too old for 1994. I think Barbara would have been about 60 or something. They might be trying to make her sound 70. Ish. So that and the voice actress sounded bored. I think it would have been better if they just went to the house. She agreed to do an interview. She gave her side of the story. It might have been better if there was as much Barbara as there was Ian. That might have helped give their story, but then again, it might have made the plot even shitter. I don't know. This thing is just difficult. It's difficult. It's because the backstory with Susan, it's awful. The stuff it has with Susan, it's just trying to make the Doctor look like the villain and a horny bastard. And it's also having details of adventures between the Dalek invasion of Earth and the chase happened that with Susan having knowledge of that somehow. She somehow knows that Ian was knighted by Richard I. She somehow knows about the Minotaur and actually fell in love with one. And she knew about Mechanus and Ian and Barbara getting back, travelling. Maybe Terry told her about that bit, but still. You'd have to be watching to find that out. Yeah, Terry, great. Okay, fair enough. The Doctor's real name could be David or Barry or something, but we don't know. But still, for the man of mystery, especially as the version from the first Doctor and later the seventh Doctor, feels a bit silly. Even sillier than something Moffat could come up with. In fact, I would take Moffat's stories, most of them anyway, over this any day. In fact, I'd even take motherfucking Hellbent over this. I'd even take the Space Pirates. They're god-awful, but they don't fuck up continuity. They fuck up the characters in the case of Hellbent, but they don't fuck up continuity. And Space Pirates is just boring and not very imaginative. This just fucks and shits on there's characters and there's continuity. And it's a bad story, full stop. Everything that doesn't have anything related to do with the show, like stuff with Susan's life when coming back. It's awful. It's probably the worst bit, actually. Worse than the continuity errors. It's awful. It's boring. It's uninteresting. It doesn't sound real. It sounds realistic, but okay, no, it doesn't. It's not realistic. And on top of that, it's excruciating to listen to. There is only a few good points, and I mentioned some of the acting, but some of the other actings, they don't get the characters or are just bad. I would say the one who did Joe is like the character, I suppose. And they got the Joe Jones bit right, at least they got that. And in fact, it was made in Bristol. And I do like this radio play angle to interview things. It's a bit like the Laramie Project, which we did in drama. It was someone was going around interviewing citizens of the town city where a gay boy was murdered by two bastards, and they were giving their opinions about what was happening. So it's something like that. So it's something like this, but in a radio play form. Nick, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing very well, thank you very much. Nick Payne. Basically, this review is, well, pretty terrible. It's god-awful. Thank you. And it's done well. That's good, I'll give it that. But the story is playing out is just absolute trollop. It is awful. I cannot contain this anger anymore. So, after all that, I have decided to give Whatever Happened to Susan a 1 out of 10. That is one great big pile of shit. It came very close to a 0, but there were some bits that saved it, like some of the acting, the execution, for the most parts, and I will give it this. It did want to tell a story about Susan, which some people may not have done in 1994, unless you were avid fans. I don't think the people who wrote this were fans, because it messes up constantly. It seems like they've done their research, but not enough. It's like they've gotten a book and they've read about it, as opposed to maybe looking on, if I don't know if some of those stories were out on video yet, but if any of those were, any of those first Doctor stories were on video, you could have a look at some of those. Alternatively, you've got the Target novelisations as well, but I think the writer just looks through a history book as opposed to an actual, as a storybook or one of the videos, and or just some information he found somewhere. I mean, 1994, it's more difficult to get information than 2014 or 2019 when this is being recorded, but still, it's easier doing research. But somehow, 1965's Doctoring the Daleks was somehow got a better adaptation of the Daleks than this story does about any of the others. I mean, what I mean is that 2 years after the story, the Daleks, and 2 years, and they made an almost direct remake, and they could not have done that completely on memory. So they must have either had a script, or maybe they were given some of the reels, probably the script. And the same for Invasion Earth, probably. But at least they had better access to that story than these people seem to have with all of this, and they've got more sources, and it's been longer, so they can collect more information. It's easier to collect with more books and the videos, and maybe the start of the internet. Maybe some website might have some old website might have some information. I don't know, maybe not, but they still have access to some information. If your play was made in 2019 with this script quality, we would go berserk, we fans. I already gave it a 1 out of 10. Imagine if it was made now. It probably wouldn't be any better. I mean, the execution was pretty good for the most parts. So that's the only thing it probably could get better is probably cleaner audio. I bet Big Finish could probably do it better. They have the good writers. They have good writers. I mean, I keep forgetting that Dark Invasion of Earth took place in '67, but still, they have better writers. Okay, that's it. I'm finished. I'm finished ranting about this shit fest. I only gave it a 1 because of the few good points it got. Like the same with the Space Museum, Space Pirates. Space Museum was a 5. It just about managed that. The Space Pirates just about managed. Got a 1. This thing, I think, if it wasn't for those few good moments, it probably would be a 0. I don't think I would give anything Doctor Who related a 0 out of 10, but this certainly came extremely close. So, yeah, so a very low 1 out of 10 to end this, score this story, as already mentioned. So that's it from me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time, hopefully on better terms. Goodbye. God. Oh, that was awful. Who the hell are you? I am the Whoniversals villain. Oh, I can't care anymore. Just done a really terrible... Well, reviewed something very terrible. And I am here to take over the Whoniversals channel, starting with your death. What? No, you can't, no. No,